Hey guys, it's Sam, and welcome to Caps Lock, a podcast designed to help you live bigger, better, louder, and longer. Before we get started, I just want to thank you guys for listening and for giving this a chance and for coming here in pursuit of your best self. This is a space where we are going to grow together, and I hope that it helps you go forward confidently, unapologetically, and with purpose. It's time to live your life in Caps Lock. If that mission feels aligned for you, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. Something that all of our kind of first couple episodes had in common is that I recorded them a long-ass time ago. When I was kind of prepping for the distribution of this podcast, I decided to batch record a bunch of episodes in advance of releasing. That way I was working ahead and could really kind of sit back and listen to your guys' feedback and understand the data of like what you guys want to hear, what you're enjoying versus like what's not working so well before I kept recording new ones. So a lot of what you've heard already was recorded about a month ago. So today I'm recording my first solo episode in a couple weeks, and I have learned so much. I am so grateful for those of you, not only those of you who are listening, but also those of you who are rating the show on Spotify and Apple. Guys, we have over 250 reviews and a 5-star average. I am maybe going to cry right now while I'm saying that. I can't believe the way this show resonates with so many of you, and I just really genuinely appreciate you sharing your positive feedback. I've also gotten some constructive feedback in my DMs that is beyond helpful. Now that I'm in this kind of second batch, I'm a little bit more comfortable speaking just basically at a blank wall while I'm in this studio by myself. Like I said, the feedback has been invaluable, and I'm just really starting to feel the flow. So I hope to just continue improving the show. And on that note, let's get started. So in the spirit of talking about your guys' ratings and reviews, want to share a small milestone, which is that last week we charted top 50 on Spotify and top 100 on Apple in the education category. That's the same category as my queen, Mel Robbins. And I decided to put the pod in that category instead of the health category because I do feel like this is a learning show. And I'm just blown away by the downloads we've been getting, the audience feedback, and that was epic. Another update, I did one of those full body MRIs. It's called the Prenuvo scan. It tests for like thousands of conditions. It can detect tumors. It can detect cancer as early as stage 1. I did it preventatively. My doctors felt that it was right for me. I have a history of certain cancers in my family, and they thought it was just a good and safe idea for preventative healthcare. I've heard from some people that their doctors did not recommend it or actually actively recommended against it. But the reason, almost all of them, the reason that they didn't recommend it was because they feel like the scan almost gives you like too much information. And if you are even a little bit prone to health anxiety or being a hypochondriac, it can lead you down some kind of rabbit holes where something is benign and you like take it too far and like go get testing and seek treatment for something that's not a problem. I believe information is power, and I loved the scan. I got my results back. They pair you with a physician to go over them in depth, and they provide you not only with informational findings and at-risk findings, but then they also literally take the imaging and show you like the clip of it that really matters for that particular finding. So for example, my scan found a cyst in my right knee, which I got a couple of surgeries on that knee when I was in high school. I was dancing ballet and it, wear and tear. But I didn't know about this cyst. And they were like, this is important to be aware of just because if you do feel irritation or aggravation in the knee, you're just equipped with the information that there is something going on there. And you can bring this MRI to your doctors and you're one step ahead of addressing it. So for the most part, really clean scan. Was really grateful for the opportunity. If you want to get a Prenuvo scan and you want $300 off, definitely use my code prenuvo.com/Samantha Fair. I'll put it in the show notes, but highly recommend. I'm going to do one more update and then we will dive into the episode. I came across an amazing quote on Instagram today. I reposted it on the Caps Lock account, and I'm going to read it to you guys because it really just set me up for an amazing day. I found it to be really motivating. So I reposted this from Kayla Barnes. That's at Kayla Barnes on Instagram. And it says, "To get what you've never had, you must do what you've never done." That just really hit me in my soul today. And if you wanted to start your day with like a little dose of inspiration or motivation, that really did the trick for me. I wrote it on a Post-it and I stuck it up on my wall, and I've just been staring at it all day. I'm loving it. Okay, cool. Let's get into the episode. I've never been a morning person in my entire life. Growing up, like one of my core memories from middle school and high school is just literally always running late in the morning. I was dancing ballet, and so there were nights when I would be in the studio until literally 10 p.m., and then sometimes I would still have homework to do when I got home. So oftentimes, literally in my young age of like 12 and 16, I would be up until like midnight on school nights and then have to be at school at 7:30 in the morning. So a lot of times I was up late at night and had a really difficult time waking up. And then I feel like in my adulthood, that really manifested in me being a night owl. I think when you just repeat a behavior so many times over so many years, there's no way it doesn't show up in your life later on. So even in my adulthood, I've really always had a hard time getting out of bed, but I never, ever struggled to stay awake at night. Now, as you know, if you are a listener of the pod or a follower on my socials, the last few years I've really kind of zeroed in on my health journey. In 2023 and in the beginning of 2024, I was crushing it. I was eating super healthy. I had a really solid routine. I was working out 6 days a week, which is crazy of me. I was getting my 10K steps a day. But partway through 2024, I moved into my new apartment, which is in a new part of town. And I kind of rode the chaos of moving, but didn't really have like an active plan for how I was going to rebuild my routine. So I just found myself kind of going with the flow, which sounds like it has a positive connotation, but I felt totally kind of lost at sea. Because when my routine falls apart, I find it so hard to stay healthy because I'm always playing catch up. Like even just silly things like I didn't have a regular grocery store anymore. I used to live right across the street from a Whole Foods, and I would go to that grocery store every week, and I had this kind of like grocery haul, stuff that I would always get that would make sure that I had a bunch of like whole, unprocessed, healthy ingredients in my refrigerator. And then I could like make food from it throughout the week. I have a Whole Foods near my apartment now, but when I first moved in, I didn't. It was under construction. And I literally couldn't find a grocery store I liked. There was this like little local market on the corner that was so cute and seemed like locally sourced. So I was like, oh, it's probably really healthy. Guys, I went to the prepared food thing and I got 2 fillets of grilled salmon. I'll literally never forget this. It's like seared into my memory because it was so traumatizing. I went to the checkout and I paid for it, and it was $42 just for the salmon. That like if you're putting that salmon on a salad or in a bowl, or if you're getting sides, like that was a $26 meal already without any of those added costs. So I just like little things like having no grocery store and no kind of routine of like what I'm putting in my fridge to make sure I'm set up for a healthy eating week. I was ordering takeout or like eating out at restaurants, which is bad on the wallet and on the health with all the seed oil scandals going around. And I honestly don't know why I thought that was better than just buying the salmon for $42. But it's that kind of thing. And same thing with like I had a different gym and like different trainers. My trainers from downtown, well, they're downtown now. I'm not going to commute 45 minutes each way to the gym when I have gyms that are perfectly good uptown. But like when your friends are not there and you like are in a totally new environment, you're just not as motivated to work out. So anyway, because of this move, for most of 2024, I was literally just winging it. And by the end of the year, I was really feeling the impact of that. I was not feeling good about how I looked. I was always tired. And I started noticing a pattern in myself that I hated, which was people would ask, "How are you? What's up? How are you? How you doing?" Like a normal freaking conversation starter. And my response was starting to be always the same. I would be like, "Good, busy, tired." Sorry, what? Are you kidding? I don't want to be that person. Like, busy and tired, that's not a response to how are you. That's not a good response. And I'm starting to really believe that being tired is a choice because you can genuinely prioritize feeling good and choose not to be tired. We just all are choosing these bad habits that keep us tired. Now, in December, I went away for 2 weeks to Brazil to celebrate a friend's wedding. And on my return flight, we took a red eye. And my boyfriend and I landed at, I think it was Newark Airport at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, old Sam would have gotten in the Uber, gotten home at like 6 a.m. and gone to sleep for at least like 2 hours, right? But that day, my boyfriend and I were feeling a little adventurous, and we were like, why don't we just use this to like get a head start on the day? Because we had been traveling. We felt like a little bit behind on work, even though we had taken some time to work during our trip to Brazil. And so we got back to our respective apartments, and we both just like kind of got shit done from 6 to 9 a.m. before the workday started. And at like 9, he texted me and he was like, not to be insane, but are you having the best day ever? And I was like, yes, like I've gotten so much done. I did my laundry, I unpacked, I like got through a bunch of emails. And during that time from 6 to 9 a.m., people are not like bothering me. People are not texting, they're not calling, no one's posting on social. I'm not getting bogged down with emails and requests already. Like I was really able to kind of get back to a spot where I felt caught up and even a little bit ahead. So fast forward to New Year's. If you know anything about me, you know I take my New Year's planning very seriously, like way too seriously. I'm talking like I light candles, open up a bunch of brand new journals. I have like a vision board on this side. I have my like hot tea on this side. I'm doing visualizations. Like you expect me to break out into a chant, I swear. So during my New Year's planning, I was starting to build out my 2025 calendar because I am traveling, you guys, a ton this year for weddings and work. I will probably have a little bit of travel just like for fun and for joy. But I kid you not, I have like 7 weddings planned and I have trips planned all the way out through November 2025. Guys, it's like January 7th. That's ridiculous. But I digress. Anyway, I'm looking at my calendar and I'm like exhausted just looking at it. But then I remembered what I just said a few minutes ago, which is that tired is a choice. I can literally choose to wake up and feel amazing every single day. And the only thing holding me back from that is inertia, which in this case is like me choosing to prioritize bad habits, like the ordering out, skipping the gym because I have no routine, staying up too late, like scrolling on my phone or like watching something on Netflix. Now, my boyfriend actually did all of this 2025 planning with me, which I seriously commend him for and I'm so grateful for because planning is my love language. I am so type A. I'm so neurotic. I'm such a planner. I also just love having everything settled in advance, especially with like this much travel. I love having my flights booked, my dinner reservations made, all my confirmation numbers are like in a planner somewhere. Even just like little things like making plans with your friends in advance. I think it makes everything in life so much more fun. By the time you get to the trip, you are stress-free. You have so many things to look forward to. So my boyfriend and I are doing this together. And after we put all of our travel in the calendar, we kind of started talking about how we just had to figure out a wellness routine because both of us were just totally out of it. We felt gross. We felt lethargic. So the first thing we did was we developed a workout split, which for us this year is going to include strength training and cardio and also low impact movement. We blocked off some time for sauna, steam, and cold plunge, which I've done before. And I love them, but they're just like new to my weekly rotation. I hadn't done any of them on kind of a regular cadence. And I feel like this past year, we have heard so much about the health benefits of those things, especially the sauna. So highly recommend putting that in. I've already been loving that part of my routine. But perhaps the most important thing that my boyfriend and I did while we were doing our New Year's planning and our scheduling and all that is that we set ourselves a bedtime and a wake up time. And I know we sound like toddlers, but that is what we are going to talk about today because, like I said earlier, I have never, ever been a morning person, but I have officially become one. It literally took less than a week. I am obsessed with it, and I am never looking back. And I did an AMA on Instagram last week, and when I mentioned that I had become a morning person, I swear to God, I got like 250 DMs from you guys being like, how the fuck did you do that? So we're going to unpack it. I'm a little bit of an etymology nerd, so I was pretty stoked to learn that there is a word for whether you're naturally predisposed to waking up early or staying up late and what time of the day you are sleepiest or most alert. And that word is chronotype, and we're going to use it a lot, so stay with me. As it turns out, your chronotype is partly genetic. So if you weren't born a morning person, it is not entirely your fault. And I think I relied a little too heavily on that excuse for a lot of my life, but let's talk about it just for a sec. A 2019 study in Nature Communications explored the science of being a morning person. They looked at 700,000 different people's genomes and identified 351 gene variations that can be connected back to a person's chronotype. Now, some of these genes were involved in brain tissues, circadian rhythm, the retina's processing of sunlight, and the body's processing of caffeine and nicotine, two of our favorite vices. But there were plenty more gene variations affecting people's chronotype that are actually still being studied to understand their impact. And that's really interesting because it means we're going to get a lot more information out of those. So I'm going to monitor the study and keep you posted. Now, the one thing about the study is that it appears that the actual difference in what time the morning people versus night owls went to bed is only 25 minutes. So it doesn't seem that dramatic. And therefore, being competitive and a go-getter and super ambitious, I feel like it can be overridden by sheer willpower, which I have plenty of. Now, there is research out there that suggests it's just better overall to be a morning person. And don't forget, I always cite my references in the episode descriptions. So if you want to dive deeper into any of these studies, please feel free to scroll down and click. They're really interesting. And as you know, I only give you kind of a surface level peek into them for the sake of time. So let's talk about why it's better to be a morning person. A study I found digging around in the National Library of Medicine says that evening types or night owls are significantly more prone to depression, schizophrenia, and other mood disorders. A study from the University of Toronto surveyed 700 adults on their sleeping and waking habits and learned that morning people were 25% happier in their day-to-day lives than night owls. Morning people tend to be more productive than night owls because their waking hours are better aligned with what our society decided would be business hours. And for the same reason, these morning people often perform better at school and work. A 2013 study following students from 5 different high schools showed that the average GPA of early risers was a 3.5, while the average GPA of night owls was 2.5. That is a full point lower. Morning people also suffer less from sleep inertia. I feel like I'm loving the word inertia today. But basically, when your body wakes up, your brain doesn't just automatically wake up with it. It takes a little bit to kind of get moving. Research coming from the University of Bristol in the UK found that after performing an experiment with almost 500,000 adult women, twice as many night owls as opposed to morning people developed breast cancer within an 8-year span of the study. Now, of course, that percentage is still pretty, low, but the morning people, 1 in 100 women developed breast cancer in the 8-year study, and in night owls, 2 in 100 women. So I think worth noting, let's see what else. A 2021 study published in Oxford University Press found that the night owl chronotype is more insulin resistant. Now, we talk about insulin resistance sometimes on this podcast because it impacts a lot of our well-being. Insulin resistance means higher blood sugar, and higher blood sugar means more inflammation And more inflammation means higher likelihood of chronic disease. So that's just like a little A to B to C to D. The night owl chronotype also has a higher risk of developing heart disease, whereas the inverse was true of early risers. They had an actively lower risk of developing heart disease. Now, this one is really interesting. One of the most widely accepted personality profiling models is called the Big Five. This concept was coined in the 80s by two guys named Robert McCrae and Paul Costa. And basically, it refers back to 5 traits that can be remembered with the acronym CANOE, C-A-N-O-E. CANOE stands for conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and extroversion. And basically, people's personalities are measured on a scale in each of these categories. And then the scale is often used to diagnose personality disorders or, deem how well-adjusted you are as a person. Now, a 2008 study considered the Big Five and the correlation of those traits to chronotypes in an attempt to measure causation. For example, does being a morning person make you more agreeable? The study found that morning people had a positive correlation with both agreeableness and conscientiousness, even after controlling for age and gender. Now, I think that's fascinating. And then also in females, neuroticism correlated with night owls. Now, I'm a little bit neurotic and I'm a new morning person. And I'm sure all of us are a little bit neurotic. But I just thought that was really interesting because overall, the more positive and well-adjusted traits correlated with what they call morningness, and the more negative ones correlated with eveningness. Like I said, the full study is linked in the resources. I just think it's so interesting. Highly recommend clicking and giving it a read. Now, there are so many more things out there, more like quote unquote benefits to being a morning person, if you look it up. But I think a lot of the kind of big ones are more supported anecdotally and a little bit less validated by research. For example, one that I've personally heard a lot and came up a lot when I was researching this episode was that morning people are less likely to be overweight. And for whatever reason, I think we always just associate morning people with these hard body soccer mom types who are so skinny and peppy. Anyway, I think it's more of an anecdotal situation. A lot of research doesn't really back that up. They say if you have healthy habits, even if you're a night person, maybe you're skinny. So there are a couple that if you were wondering why they're missing from that list, that's why. It's because I found either conflicting research or the research doesn't really support it. Now, in my personal experience, becoming a morning person, although it's very new for me, has already had enormous benefits and honestly just not a lot of drawbacks or difficulties yet. So one of the big ones that I really want to highlight is I now have uninterrupted time every single day with my boyfriend. And I saw something on Instagram the other day that I can't really substantiate, but I thought was interesting, which was that when you are leaving for work in the morning, if you kiss your partner, not just a peck on the lips on your way out the door, but actually take a moment and either hug them or kiss them, touch them physically for 5 to 6 seconds, you start to release oxytocin. That's how long it takes your brain to register physical connection and release the oxytocin that human physical touch provides. And people who kiss their partner on the way out the door or hug their mom or dad on their way out the door, that kind of thing, are more likely to live I think it was 4 or 5 years longer. I thought that was so interesting, but regardless, having that uninterrupted kind of quality time with my partner in the morning is so good for my mental health. It's so good for us, I think, especially because we're using our morning time to build healthy habits. But I really just feel more connected to him and feel we're being so much more deliberate and intentional with our time. So I really think it's doing great things for us. Waking up in the morning has also given me time to eat a healthy breakfast and eat it in a healthy way. I talked in the doom scrolling episode about how we should, when we're eating, not be watching TV or the news or something and really try to just be with our thoughts and experiencing the food. That is a healthy way to eat. If you are able to eat slower, it allows your brain time to register what you're eating and when you're full. And for me, breakfast has just become like an essential part of my life in the last like year or two. So I love having time to eat something healthy as opposed to like shoving a like gross processed sugary protein bar in my mouth on the way out the door or like skipping breakfast entirely and just like pumping caffeine. Being a morning person has also given me guilt-free time to work out. Now, before I was a morning person, I would work out at one of three times. The first time would be never. I would just like miss my workout for the day because there was like quote unquote never a good time. Well, guess what? There is a good time, and it's before the rest of the world wakes up because you're not missing emails. You're not like skipping meetings. You're not like doing something you shouldn't be doing. There is almost never somewhere you have to be at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's a great time. So the first time I was doing it was never. The second time was after work when I would always be like, oh, but I would like rather socialize or like, ugh, I'm drained or ugh, I want to catch up on my Netflix or like whatever the fuck. And that was no fun because I always felt like I was like denying myself something fun and pleasurable and like punishing myself with a workout. And that just like made me feel bad about working out. And the third time was real sketchy, and it would be like during my lunch break or something, which, in case you were wondering, when you're a small business owner and when you're your own boss and when you work for yourself, you don't have a fucking lunch break. You eat what you kill. So if I worked out in the middle of the workday, would always feel so guilty because my phone would be like, ping, here's an email, ping, putting a meeting on your calendar, ping, here's something I forgot. And it would just drive me crazy. And I was never able to focus on my workout without feeling guilty for missing work. So having guilt-free time in the morning to work out has just felt really incredible. It also starts my caffeine intake earlier, which I'm going to talk about in a minute when we get into the tips for becoming a morning person. But this has been really good for me because I am super sensitive to caffeine. I also love just having consistency in my morning routine. When I didn't have a set wake up time that was the same every day and that was early every day, I didn't feel like I could really prioritize my routine. And like I have discovered that I thrive with a morning routine. It really just sets me up for a good day. It like makes me more productive in life and at work. Like I'm able to do chores before work now, which is like kind of amazing. Like I immediately start my day by making my bed and like making sure my home is tidy. I'm one of those people who like literally cannot sit down at my desk and do my job if my home is a mess. Like all I can do is think about what's going on behind me. So that has been really helpful. I feel like there are a million other benefits. I could talk about this forever. I mean, let's just start with like having a normal fucking bedtime. I actually get tired at like 10 p.m. That's amazing. I used to literally have what I thought was insomnia, but was really just me choosing bad things. And it's also gotten me back into a reading routine because I now have time every single night before bed to read. What a gift. My only drawback so far that I have discovered is that occasionally I will have a late afternoon crash, which I'm trying to kind of isolate behaviors and see what's causing it and like experiment. Now, my boyfriend tried a little caffeine bump around 10 a.m. So he had his first caffeine hit right before our workout at 7. And then he had another little caffeine hit around 10 a.m. And he said he didn't get the crash. So I'm going to test that. I'm also going to test a bunch of other things, including like delaying my caffeine intake until maybe after the workout, which sounds really hard now that I'm saying it. But I will let you know how that goes. While I'm discussing it, I do think I need to do an episode just on caffeine because I'm not a coffee drinker, which surprises a lot of people. I'm literally born with crazy energy. But I also just don't really like the taste of coffee. So I often find myself resorting to energy drinks, which we know are so bad for our hearts, so bad for our brains. Often they like dump sugar and like chemicals into them. So I'm kind of looking for caffeine alternatives. I've heard a lot about yerba mate recently. Definitely going to try that. I'm a big fan of green tea, but I've found that it doesn't give me enough caffeine and fast enough when I wake up in the morning to like hit in time for my really hard workout class. So anyway, I think we're probably going to do an episode coming up on caffeine. Maybe we'll bring like a like founder, entrepreneur, or doctor on to discuss with me because I feel like I don't have all the answers. And I feel like there's so much science that it might be hard to parse by myself, but stay tuned for that. Anyway, to circle back, since the ADHD is flowing today, I do think a lot of the benefits I'm experiencing from being a morning person are just about like it's giving me extra time in the day. And if you're wondering why I think extra time during the day is better than having extra time at night, it's because that's just the way our culture is set up. I like to think of it like Mac's operating system and like the newest MacBook. The newer MacBooks literally don't even run on the old operating systems, but they run so smoothly and quickly and without glitching on the new operating systems. And that's why you always have to download like the latest OS X. In this analogy, we are the MacBooks and our society is the operating system. Did I get that right? We're the MacBooks. Yes. And we're running on the operating system. If we choose to go with the flow that society has set up for us, we can be more productive and healthier because there are so many things working in our favor and there are more opportunities for us to get things done during the day than there are after closing hours. And another thing worth noting is that night owls are forced to engage in the early AM start times. So mostly the night owls are just not getting enough sleep. Like if you're staying up till like midnight or later, well, your job doesn't just start later because you got to bed later. Your job probably still starts at 9, sometimes earlier, maybe 10 if you work in New York. So like a lot of times the night owls are not just like, oh, I go to bed late, but I still get 8 hours of sleep. Most of them don't. Most of the night owls are getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep. And that's what I was experiencing when I was a night owl. Plus, for what it's worth, most of us who are naturally or have been night owls are not often using that time to do productive things like exercise or work. If we're being totally honest with ourselves, we're most likely using that time at 11 or 12 late at night to doom scroll on our phones or like binge watch the second season of Squid Game, be honest, or doing stuff that like your brain can tell you is a huge fucking waste of time and you should be sleeping instead, but your body does it like compulsively and you can't make yourself stop. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in my bed scrolling, looking for like a dress for a wedding and getting like so hyper fixated on it. And then I'm like, okay, I should really stop and go to bed. And it's like 11. And I'm like, okay, if I go to bed now, I can get 7 hours of sleep. That's okay. And then like the next time I look at the clock, it's 2:00 in the morning. What the fuck is that about? Now, and listen, not everybody should fight their natural chronotype. Like if you are genuinely productive at night and it works for your lifestyle and it is not fucking your life up, you don't wake up exhausted, then slay, good for you. That's just like not the case for me. I wanted to be able to get up in the morning and have a productive life. And this episode is for people who want to be a morning person, who want to give it a shot and think they might be happier and feel better and better adjusted if they were a morning person. And here's the thing, I genuinely believe that anyone can be a morning person or can make themselves a morning person because what you water grows. And waking up at a different time is literally just another habit. So now I'm going to tell you some strategies I have, most of which I have personally used and recommend. I have 20 tips for you guys. I scoured the internet. I have some kind of classics tried and true. And then I also have some fucking weird ones that you've never heard of and you're literally going to roll your eyes at me. But I recommend trying them all and seeing what works for you and what motivates you. And as always, take what you need and leave what you don't. Okay, tip number 1. In the morning, immediately upon waking up, try getting natural light. Now, currently, I'm waking up at 6:30 and it is pitch fucking black until literally 7:15. If that is the case, get a Hatch alarm clock because it closely mimics, the experience of having natural light. But anyway, the purpose of this is to activate your circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm, if you hear that a lot and you're like, that's a buzz term, what does it mean? It's basically, in the simplest terms, your body's natural timekeeping system. Our ancestors didn't have Hatch alarm clocks or iPhone alarm clocks. They rose with the sun and they slept in the darkness. We, despite evolution, have retained that biological timekeeping system. So taking care of your circadian rhythm improves not just like the amount you sleep, but also your sleep quality. Like you get better quality sleep during the time you're asleep. And it improves your awake quality. It improves your alertness, your clarity during the day. So take care of that circadian rhythm and get some natural light first thing in the morning or hit that Hatch alarm clock. Hatch, maybe sponsor this podcast. I'll sing your praises forever. Tip number 2. In a similar vein from the previous tip, I would like you to charge your phone overnight in a different room. And there are 2 reasons. Number 1 is that it will prevent doom scrolling at night, which A, gives you blue light, which messes up your circadian rhythm, which we were just talking about. And 2, like the social media, which we talked about in doom scrolling, are literally designed to keep you sucked in. And so it's really hard to stop once you start. The other thing about blue light is that type of light, basically the reason it's so bad, and I feel like I should have talked about this already, but basically, it prevents your brain from emitting melatonin. It just like blocks it. So we want to remove the blue light. And then also we want to remove kind of like the cliffhanger suck-in syndrome that social gives you. And then the other reason is basically the same reason, but it will, if you charge your phone in a different room overnight and don't use it as an alarm clock in the morning, you won't look at it first thing in the morning. Now, the reason looking at it first thing in the morning is bad, you're like, oh, well, blue light keeps you awake, right? Like, so it should wake me up. Sure. But a lot of what you're seeing on your phone in the morning when you open up social media is spiking your cortisol. And that is a stress hormone that basically fucks up your entire life. If your cortisol is too high, you are experiencing inflammation, higher levels of C-reactive protein. It just like messes with your mental health and your physical health. Tip number 3, read a book. How many times have you heard this one? Read a book beginning 30 minutes before you want to go to sleep. And obviously you need a light in order to read a paper book. And if you are using a light to read a paper book instead of reading a Kindle, I want you to make sure that your light is like yellow or amber light. You can get a temperature controlled light bulb. You can especially get a warm colored light bulb. You need to do that to remove the fluorescent and blue light from your experience. But reading like takes your mind off of stress. It helps with your circadian rhythm. If you hate reading, even fucking better. It'll put you right to sleep. Trust me. Also, as we know, I think we should all be reading more books. It makes you smart. It makes you compassionate. It is a self-improvement tactic. It is a habit that we should all be incorporating into our daily lives. I don't care if it's nonfiction. I don't care if it's a magazine, ideally not a tabloid, something a little bit more thoughtful, or it can be fiction. Any of those things are great. And if you think you hate reading, reading every single night might even make you like it. Tip number 4. This is hard for some people, easy for others. Don't have a television in your bedroom. I come to you saying this humbly as a person who has a television in their bedroom. I use it as a special treat sometimes on like a big crazy weekend. I will literally like watch true crime in bed before I go to sleep. And that is literally the worst thing you can do and goes against everything I'm preaching in this episode. But everyone deserves a sweet treat once in a while. And if that's my vice, that's my vice. Leave me alone. Anyway, the reason you shouldn't have a TV in your bedroom, now that I've owned up to that, is A, the blue light, which I swear I'll stop talking about. Also, like hook plots, similarly to social media, these shows are literally designed to end on cliffhangers. Have you seen Squid Game? The answer to that is yes, because you watched all of it in one sitting. It's like the binge culture is out of control. It keeps you on the hook. It makes you want to click next episode. It's so low effort. And again, spikes that cortisol. So take the TV all the way out of the bedroom, just like your phone. Take all your devices and lock them outside your door. If there is going to be blue light in your life within the hour before bedtime, or if you have like fluorescent light bulbs, or even if you just want to go the extra mile, if you're an overachiever, I want you to wear blue light blocking glasses for an hour before bed. Now, if you are like really in the health zeitgeist the way I am, you will literally see Andrew Huberman walking around anytime after 9 p.m., whether he's in his own home or at the grocery store, God forbid, or if he has like a social outing. He is such a nerd. It's hilarious. He will wear glasses with red lenses out. Like, I saw literally a video of him going to, like, a party or something, and he was wearing his red lenses. And someone was like, "Oh, is that to look cool?" And he was like, "No, these are my blue light blocking glasses." And I was like, nerd slay. So you should definitely, I mean, like, I'm not going to do it in public, go off Andrew Huberman, but like, I'm probably going to restrict that to my own home. But if you absolutely must come in contact with blue or fluorescent light before bed, put these bad boys on. Tip number 6, as soon as you stand up in the morning, stretch. Bend over, do like a downward dog, do like the longest stretch that you possibly can, like pull your arms all the way up and like crack your neck and do all the things. It gets your blood flowing. It wakes up your extremities. It reduces stiffness. It kind of just like greases the wheels so that your body can function throughout the day. But it also, as it gets your blood pumping, it gets your blood pumping to your brain, which just kind of helps your brain start moving too. And it like reduces grogginess and brain fog first thing in the morning. Tip number 7, chug water immediately. I'm talking instantly upon waking. So put water, literally everyone I know sleeps with water by their bedside. Put water on your nightstand or next to your bed. Your body, basically, like the reason for this is because your body loses liquid overnight and it becomes dehydrated. And replenishing the water first thing in the morning boosts your energy. It reduces brain fog. It kickstarts your metabolism and your digestion. So it's much better for you. Like you literally start burning calories. Tip number 8, have an accountability partner. Now, there are a couple ways you can do this. For me, sometimes it's I have a partner that I sleep in the same bed as, and both of us are doing this together. And it's like, so fun. It's like a challenge or like an activity we can do together. If you don't like co-sleep with a partner, you can do it with your roommate. And if you live alone or you're single, find a friend to text every single morning when you wake up. And the deal is like one of you texts first and the other one texts back. And that text better come in before your like whatever your mandatory wake up time is. Now, there is like another hidden sort of benefit to this, and this tip comes from Andrew Huberman as well. Basically, he has this thing where he's like, one of the best things that you can do to start your day is send a good morning text to someone, and that person sends one back. Or maybe they send it to you and you send one back. Basically, the concept here is that this is a predictable experience, and when humans experience a predictable encounter, there is safety in it. Like, biologically speaking, there is safety in predictability. When you know the outcome, you can prepare for it. So this kind of predictable experience, having that first thing in the morning, begins your day with a safe feeling and a solid foundation that allows you to move forward with confidence and peace. So you don't need to have a partner. You don't need to have a roommate. Just like you can have someone that you text every morning. Tip number 9, this is kind of a funny one. Bribe yourself. I made a deal with myself that if I didn't wake up and get out of bed before 7 a.m., I'm not allowed to have caffeine. And in case you were wondering, that is a fucking terrible experience. If you are tired enough that you can't get out of bed by the time you set for yourself, then you definitely want that caffeine. And if you don't allow yourself to have it, it's like a great punishment. It's like negative reinforcement. Like I will never let that happen again. But you can replace caffeine with anything. Like I have a friend who's like so into her shows on Netflix, and her self-bribe is like, I'm not allowed to watch Netflix tonight if I don't get out of bed by 7 a.m. And like, go off. I love this. It's like a little self-threatening. Go for it. Tip number 10, be conscientious and deliberate about your caffeine intake. Data from roughly 160,000 Sleep Foundation profiles shows that about 88% of people who regularly consume caffeine during the day have also reported experiencing at least one sleep issue. Caffeine can make it hard to fall asleep, and it can also negatively impact the quality of your sleep, and it can reduce your slow wave sleep dramatically. And slow wave sleep is like one of the biggest keys for waking up feeling refreshed. So basically, during our waking hours, our brains produce a chemical called adenosine, which basically, as it builds up, it makes you sleepy. Now, caffeine blocks adenosine receptors, so it just like cuts it off. And caffeine's half-life is up to 12 hours. Now, a half-life is how long it takes your body to metabolize and eliminate half the dose you consumed, which means caffeine can stay in your body and mess with your sleep for up to 24 hours. Now, I don't know. Actually, I do know about you. I was going to say I don't. I do know about you. Most of us caffeinate every single day, which means that we are repressing our adenosine production consistently and without taking breaks, which is destroying our body's natural system for making us sleepy and waking us up. That's fucked up. Consider it. Tip number 11, and I'm sorry, this is like so lame and obvious, but just like go to bed earlier. What? Okay, I have decided after much thought that this is a maturity thing. I think it's like a maturity adult growing up thing. I feel like I used to have FOMO going to bed early. I felt like I was like missing out or I was lame. I'm sorry, no. I now, as in my big old age of 27, I genuinely prefer the time I get in the morning waking up early to the time I spend awake after 10 p.m. There is simply nothing demanding your attention that is good for you after that hour on a weeknight. Now, like sometimes, of course, like we make exceptions for like social engagements, birthdays, weddings, whatever. But for the most part, especially on weeknights, like what amazing thing is happening to you after 10 that you're like, I need to be awake for? Are you kidding? Grow up. Okay, tip 12. We're blowing through these, guys. Develop evening and morning routines. There's a good reason for this, and the reason is that it puts your brain on autopilot so you have a low cognitive load. Whether this is skincare, coffee, shower, I don't care. Now, if developing those routines is not like realistic or not appealing to you, or if that is appealing, you just want to take it a step further, I do have a little life hack that I have used for like my whole life. I've talked about this on social before. Sometimes if I really need to have a productive day tomorrow and I'm like thinking about it the night before, I will literally open up my notes app, and instead of bullet points, you can do like a clickable checkbox. So like as you cross things off a list, it literally puts like a strike through that list item. And I will literally put every single thing I have to do in chronological order in the most insane detail. My list, I kid you not, will say wake up, brush hair, brush teeth, deodorant. Like I'm dead ass. And then it'll be like breakfast, send 5 emails. Like literally the tiniest little thing. It is like one of my best productivity hacks ever. You will be shocked when your brain is on autopilot and it is not fighting through brain fog and heavy cognitive load. You'll be shocked at how much easier it is to move through your day and be productive. So develop routines and or do my notes app hack. Tip number 13, book an early workout with a strict cancellation policy that is going to cost you money. In New York City, the workouts these days are sickeningly expensive. I was at a $42 workout class last week. It almost made me throw up, not because it was hard, just because it was expensive. But here's the thing. Because it's so expensive, you don't want to lose $42. And sometimes they even upcharge you for no showing or canceling. So if you book that early morning workout, you have a very clear and solid motivation not to skip it. And that's the whole tip. That's the whole thing, is just like try not to lose $42 a day. That's insane. Tip number 14, this is one of the weird offbeat ones, and I, disclaimer, haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to figure out how to do it. This is inspired by Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. Basically, she's like, if you are procrastinating or you don't want to do something like getting out of bed in the morning, for example, she goes, you just count down from 5 and you make a commitment to yourself that you're just going to do it. So you go 5, 4, 3, 2, and then your ass is out of bed. And this is also a sneaky little like self-worth practice, because if you regularly and consistently keep little tiny promises to yourself, you are more likely to build trust in yourself and believe in yourself. But anyway, this tip actually is sort of the 5-second rule, but I'm going to give you 10 because when my alarm goes off in the morning, my brain doesn't even register the English language for 5 seconds. So this tip is so silly, but I'm going to figure out how to do it. There are like these apps where you can convert a voice note to an MP4 and then upload it as a ringtone or like an alarm. I'm dead ass. I'm going to do this and I'll update you guys. I'm going to make my morning alarm a 10-second countdown so that in the morning when I wake up, it goes 10, 9, 8, and I'm going to make sure my ass is out of bed by 1. I'm actually pretty excited about this one. I invented it, no big deal. I guess Mel Robbins kind of invented it, but I'm applying it in a unique way and I'm going to try it. I think it's kind of hilarious, but I actually also think it's going to work because I love the 5-second rule and it changed my life. Tip number 15. All over the internet, when I was researching for this episode, websites were like, gradually bump up your wake up time by 5 minutes. We are not babies. I'm not here to coddle you. That's crazy. That will take you forever. If you're like an 8:30 girl, it'll take you weeks. I just raw dogged it, honestly. I just set my alarm one day for 6:30 in the morning and I got my ass up at 6:30. It sucks on the first day. It's a little bit less sucky on the second day. By the end of the week, you're an evangelist. You're like, I'm a morning person and you better become one. I say pick a time, start it on day 1, and never snooze your alarm again. Get that? Listen to your alarm one time. Who wants to hear that ringtone multiple times a day? What a stressful way to start the day. Honestly, I have like bad associations now with Apple ringtones because I spent my whole adult life basically hearing it 7 times a day, nagging at me to get out of bed. You're late is what it felt like it was saying. So pick a time, raw dog it, get up the first time you hear that alarm, and develop a better habit. We're grown-ups. We can handle this. Number 16, stay consistent. Do not go to bed at different times throughout the week and do not wake up at different times throughout the week. Now, disclaimer, I currently have a slightly later shift in my bedtime and wake up time on weekends. That is actually not recommended. If you really want to become a morning person and you're having trouble doing it, you should go to sleep at the same time every night and wake up at the same time every day within reason. That is the recommendation. Now, I am committed to the consistency on weekdays. If for anyone who's curious, my wake up time is 6:30 and my bedtime is bed at 10, lights out 10:30 on weeknights. And on weekends right now, I have it at wake up 8:30, bed by in bed by 11:30, bed by 12, but ideally earlier. Like there are a lot of weekends when I don't have social commitments at night and I will do my 10-something bedtime and my 6-something wake up. But a lot of weekends this year, like I said earlier, I've got weddings, I've got social engagements, you have events and parties and whatever. So the mandatory rule I set for myself is asleep at midnight at the latest on weekends. And honestly, I'm gonna be pretty firm about that too, because I'm still in the camp of what good is coming to you after midnight that you can't have before midnight? I really can't think of anything. So maybe on New Year's Eve, but that's basically my only exception. Now, also in this consistency plan, I really, really urge you to stay consistent even when you're on vacation or traveling. Not only does it give you more time to really enjoy your vacation, but traveling can totally derail you from your routine and make you feel bad when you return from your vacation. And your whole life can't be a vacation. So I don't know, to me, the definition of a vacation is when you come back feeling good and recharged and ready to tackle the world. And I can't do that if I've completely fucked up my routine while I was away. Tip number 17. Research shows that a cool, dark bedroom is best for sleep. I believe this is also an evolution thing because our caveman ancestors literally slept in caves. That's where the term caveman came from. So I think it's something like your bedroom. I did not cite an article for this, but I'm pretty sure it's between 65 and 68 degrees is the ideal optimized temperature for sleeping. And you should have literally as dark as possible. I'm talking blackout curtains, sleep mask, whatever it takes. And when you have a cold and dark bedroom, it can be hard to get out of bed in the morning because you are just like so in there all cozy, being warm under your blankets, and you're like so comfortable and the dark is so peaceful, you just want to stay forever. So this tip, number 17, is to put a bathrobe or like cozies directly next to your bed so that when you wake up, if it's freezing and you're like all snug as a bug in a rug in your bed, you can go from bed to your cozies and not be like basically in a cold plunge the instant you wake up. Now, some people like the instant cold plunge. That is great for you. Like doing a cold shower or cold plunge first thing in the morning wakes your ass up. But if you're trying to become a morning person, then you're probably not inclined naturally to enjoy that experience. So put the bathrobe out, ease your way into it. We don't need to be starting our day with cold plunges at 6:30, like baby steps. Tip number 18, lay out the first outfit you have to wear tomorrow, the night before. I've been doing this since childhood because I had trouble waking up in the mornings. And this is another thing where like autopilot is like a little bit of a recurring theme here. Like we're just trying to remove cognitive load because that is where inertia comes from. Like you have trouble like digging your way out of this cognitive load to like get on with your day. So if you lay out your first outfit for tomorrow the night before, then you're already set up. Like you don't have to think about it. You don't have to stare into your closet, which like for me is literally like it looks like a war zone in there. And it doesn't have to be all your outfits. For me, it's my gym outfit because I am working out at 7 a.m. But just getting up and like having that right there and not having to think about it just really helps like kind of grease the wheels for getting into my day. Number 19, eat your meals earlier. I don't know if you know this, but the time that you eat your meals can impact your circadian rhythm. Also, have you ever felt sleepy after a meal? I have. I do all the time. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that after you eat a meal, your energy goes toward digesting the food. So you eat the food, your blood sugar spikes, and then what is insulin's job? Insulin pulls the sugar out of the cells and turns it into energy. So then as it's working on that, your like energy is not going toward keeping you awake, it's toward digesting the food. And then your blood sugar plummets. So you start to fall asleep. Also, when you eat a meal, you release serotonin in your brain. Serotonin regulates your sleep, and so it can make you sleepier. And especially when you're eating a meal that has tryptophan in it. If you're wondering where you've heard the word tryptophan before, it's at Thanksgiving. Turkey is like well known for having tryptophan in it, and it like makes you sleepy. That's like the whole thing. But I've never really considered that tryptophan's in a bunch of other foods, and it turns out it's in literally all the most common foods that we eat. It's in a lot of meats, a lot of poultry, a lot of fish, eggs, cheese, yogurt, quinoa, soy, buckwheat. Like literally this sleep-inducing chemical is not just for Thanksgiving and turkey. It's in almost everything we eat. So eating your meals a little bit earlier is literally going to make you sleepy earlier. So just shift that schedule a little bit. It makes a huge difference. And then tip number 20, this requires a little bit of like nuanced deep dive, but I think it's one that we don't think about often because the way our medical system has conditioned us to treat things is to basically treat symptoms. But a symptom is your body's way of sending you a message saying there's something wrong. Here's a symptom. Like, let's see if she fixes it. Now, that's how we've been conditioned. So like if you're tired, you're like, oh, I'll caffeinate or, oh, I'll go to sleep earlier. But something that we can do that I think some people are not inherently curious enough to do is to find out if you have sleep problems that are related to neurobiological conditions. Now, obviously, there are literal sleep disorders that exist, things like sleep apnea, which I obviously can't diagnose for you here on the podcast, but should be considered if you think that there's a medical reason that you can't sleep and wake at a consistent or healthy time. There are also hormonal fluctuations during menstruation and pregnancy. You could have thyroid problems, but also even like one step beyond that, Berkshire Healthcare reports that 50 to 75% of adults with ADHD have sleep disorders, or report having trouble sleeping. So it's also important for you to consider unexpected neurobiological circumstances and their impacts on your sleep. And sometimes if you find out what those things are, you can treat those things and it can really help. And like the kind of underlying message there that I will probably say over and over during the making of this show is that everything in your body is connected. Nothing in your body should be considered or examined in isolation from other things that are happening in your body. That would be so silly, wouldn't it? Anyway, those are my 20 tips. It's a lot. You don't have to do all of these. That would be kind of Patrick Bateman, American Psycho of you. But do what makes sense to you. Maybe you took one or two of these things and you were like, you know what, I'm going to give that a shot. For example, chugging water when you wake up is such a low lift thing. Try it for a couple of days. If it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, or if you're like feeling like it's annoying, try something else. But those are literally 20 different things that you can do to try to make yourself a morning person. Kid you not, it took me a week. I'm loving my new life as a morning person. I told you all the benefits I'm experiencing emotionally, mentally, physically. And I really highly recommend giving it a shot if you feel like that's something that you're missing in your life. So let me know if you try these things. Let me know if you like the little life update section in the beginning of this episode. And yeah. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for giving Caps Lock a chance. If you liked this episode, please stick around for more. We do have some really interesting topics on the docket, including, like I said earlier, everything you need to know about caffeine and alternatives, manifestation, cortisol, circadian rhythm. A bunch of things we talked about today are things that you guys have asked me to kind of double click on, so we're going to talk about them. A popular one that's still to come is how to make friends as an adult, and so much more. As usual, some will be solo episodes and some will feature scientists, doctors, founders, experts, authors, and other very cool, smart people. If there is a topic you want to hear about on Caps Lock, please send me a message. A lot of you guys are already doing this, and it's so fun for me because I get to figure out what you want to hear and then I get to give it to you. And a lot of times the things that you guys are interested in, I'm also interested in. So you'll say something and I'll just get this like wave of inspiration. And I feel like I make a better episode when I'm inspired by something. So please be sending me topic recommendations. And lastly, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Threads at Life in Caps Lock. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Leave me a rating or review. Really important. And like I said, I really appreciate the ones we've already gotten. It's making a huge difference. And tune in next Sunday at 8 a.m. for another episode of Caps Lock. Okay? Love you. Talk soon.